Afternoon, folks. It's the Two Davies on the 29th of the 7th, 2024, minus a Davy. Now, update on David. He is back in the Southern General, Ward 11, where he'll be stuck for a wee while. Because he needs some equipment put in his house before he can go home. Okay, and another wee update for yous is that we got the money in for YouTube, and the YouTube sent us £1,001. Some of the great funds that use people have raised on our behalf to go to food banks didn't make the cut off, so it'll be added on to next month's total, which is quite good. Hi, George. Anyway, happy birthday to Anne Ubalik and to Lorna McDonald, because I missed their birthdays and I'm going to get my arse scalped for it. Hi, Reagan Elite. Folks, Reagan Elite's channel we watch. Right, as I say, so David's back in the hospital. Now I'll start working to get us a £1,000 out to the food banks. Started today, actually. I'll let you know where it's gone when it's going out the door. Okay. Now, once again, there is no other Davy here, so this will be done in the style of Indie Truck Davy. So it's Indie Truck Davy out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it is overcast, 19 degrees, clammy as hell. Really sticky out there, folks. Okay. So, still not got my Facebook problem sorted out yet, folks. I wasn't well yesterday. I was a wee bit off, so I didn't make it into Glasgow the way I had planned to get my technology problems resolved. Hopefully I'll get it done tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get the Facebook audience back on board on Thursday, because I'm off the next couple of days. It'll give me time. Hi, Dylan. Right. Okay, let's get into it. Shall we? SNP bad story to start the week, and its potential, the potential of more disruption on the railways. Now, it would apparently the rail unions are balloting for strike before there's a pay offer on the table. This is a new one on me. Normally, what happens is the company puts a pay offer on the table, and the trade unions then put it to their members, and their members either accept it or reject it. This is the first time that I've heard a trade union gone on strike before there's an offer on the table. But what they're saying is that they're going on strike because there hasn't been an offer put on the table by the arm's length company, the Scottish Government arm's length company, which runs ScotRail. So apparently they're going to have a strike about not having an offer on the table. Now, as I say, that's a bit unusual. Normally there's an offer on the table. Now, we're about midway through the public sector pay negotiation cycle for this particular year. It normally gets underway towards the end of April and carries on to the end of July into August. So, ScotRail really need to get an offer on the table and try and avert these strikes. Now, there's already work to rule action going on in ScotRail over a lack of drivers. But, so ScotRail really need to get a grip. Now, Scottish Government ministers have said they're monitoring the situation. And monitoring the situation, what we need is a Transport Secretary to tell ScotRail to get their arse in gear and avert strikes, which are predicted to start in September. Okay. Bad business to hold strikes while the school holidays are on. Make you damned unpopular. So, strike action may be taken in September. That's end of August. September is when the public sector pay rounds should be settled for this year. So, ScotRail, get your finger out. You've got time. Let's have the strike action averted. Okay. But that's the bad story. The SNP bad story because SNP is in charge of ScotRail because ScotRail is a public sector a franchise. The franchise is owned by the Scottish Government. Right, let's move on. The BBC are telling us we are in for a summer of discontent. And they're right. They're absolutely correct. Labour-affiliated public sector unions will be playing politics in the public sector, folks. So right across the public sector, expect disruption. You expect janitors to go on strike. You expect teachers to go on strike. Expect the next round of NHS. I think they've settled for a couple of years, so that one's fine. But expect university trouble. All sorts. Anywhere that there's a Labour-affiliated trade union. Because they'll just knock back reasonable offer after reasonable offer after reasonable offer to make mischief. Because we've got 2 years for an election. So what will happen is, as I keep stating, and I'll state this again now, the people in these public sectors areas will get increased pay rise offers. They will. But in order to pay for it, the services will be cut to the bone and staff will be laid off. And it's all part of the big picture. Because it means in 2 years' time, the Labour Party can stand and say the SNP have run down public services. When actually it was their trade unions that were doing the attack dogging. So we can see where this has gone. This is all being done with the 2026 election in sight. So, as I say, the con about it is Labour are damaging the public sector and our employment market. Because what they're doing here is as their trade unions tell their members to reject reasonable pay rises, then the public sector bodies will come back with better offers. But a consequence of that will be your service will be cut. Services to the public will diminish, and you get to look, if you work in the public sector, at your mate standing next to you and wonder whether it's your job or his job that's going. But it's deliberate. It's political football. And we'll just need to see how the different department ministers in Holyrood deal with it. Because that's what's being played out here, folks. With an ever shrinking block grant, and we'll get a wee bit more of that further in, there is less to spread around. So if you're being offered an inflation plus pay rise and you're in the public sector, when your trade union tells you to reject it, look at them and say, no, I'm going to take it. I understand. I know how the public finances work. There's only so much comes for taxation, and there's only so much comes in the block grant. And if I don't take that, then it means somebody's going to lose their job, and this service is going to be diminished. And eventually you might need that service that you were working in, and it won't be there for you. Right. So, I've been saying this for years, and I've been right year on year on year since they started this carry on after the last Scottish Holyrood election, where the SNP and the Greens tanked everybody. We've been talking about this sort of carry on going on, where we're seeing cleaners going on strike for 4 or 5 weeks at a fucking time. No money. and getting themselves into debt for a pay rise which is only just going to cover that debt and maybe a couple more bags of tatties. Fucking nuts. Let's move on. Plans for upgrades and new buildings in the NHS estate. Booted into the long grass. Okay, now there was a decision due in February this year, and any decision that was made in February this year would be delayed for 2 years because of contracting public finances. And but it's an SNP bad story because Labour and the Tories are basically, hey, where's this bloody plan? Well, can't you finance if you don't know what you're getting? No, you can. So, Shona Robson, the finance secretary, has written to the finance committee in Holyrood and said, we'll not know what we're going to be able to do with these projects until after the first Labour government budget. So we know how much we're getting in consequentials for infrastructure and how much we can spend on infrastructure. So we've got Tess White, I think it is, the Tories deputy spokesperson on health, Tess White, MSP, says no accountability in the usual stuff, blaming Westminster. But you know the thing about Tess, and the thing that Labour branch office politicians here have proven to us, is that they don't seem to understand how the block grant system, how Scotland is financed. There's a couple of devolved taxes. We get 11% of a UK VAT because they say they can't work out how much is paid in Scotland. So is that 8.4%? 11% it is. And then we have the consequentials. Per capita share of spending on public services in England. That's how the finances work. So if we don't know what the block grant's going to be, then we can't work out what we can spend on infrastructure. So this nonsense for these branch office politicians of Labour and Conservative cabinet blaming Westminster, it's no blame, it's a fact. It's how the fiscal framework is made. And it's not just, it appears not just to be Labour and Tory MSPs here in Scotland that don't seem to have a grip on it. It's never really been explained to the public either. But that's all part of muddying the waters between what's devolved and what's reserved. Okay. Thick as mince. If that's the dearth of talent in the Conservative Party in Holyrood, don't see much of a future for them. Well, I have to say, Labour in Scotland are no much brighter. I noticed that Anna Sarwars went to ground. Absolutely nuts. You know, so we've got trade unions muddying the waters here in Scotland on behalf of the Labour Party. And we've got Labour MSPs and MPs, MSPs and MPs, and we've got Conservative MSPs and MPs that appear not to know how the finances of the Scottish Parliament works. Blame Westminster, I keep fucking hearing this with fucking daft unions in the comments here and all. But as I say, a lot of people, it would appear, don't know how Scotland's financed. It would appear an awful lot don't. Maybe need to do a special on it. Because it would appear that the mainstream media is not educating anybody. Because everybody seems to think that Holyrood's got a magic money tree or something. They don't seem to understand how things are financed here. The one thing that's really, the one real economic power we have here is income tax. And we've just about done everything we can with that. to maintain public services at a much higher standard than there is elsewhere in these islands. We've got 6 tax bands, as we all know. And of course, you get the loonies across down the road in Westminster screaming, highest tax part of the UK, highest tax part of the UK, highest tax part of the UK. Well, actually, truth, if people in England want to know the truth, what you do is you look up the 6 tax bands and you'll find that those in the lowest tax band, they pay less tax than your average worker in England on the same comparable wage. It's as you go up the scale that we start to pay a wee bit more. Thanks, Lauren. Thank you very much. So you up the scale, you start to pay a wee bit more, and that's what gives us our better public services. Like, we have a social care system, free university tuitions. I don't want to explain this to you guys. You guys know this stuff. You know. Thanks, Alistair. I mean, you guys know this stuff. Right. When I talk about this stuff, it's for the benefit of people with our borders to understand what it is that we get for these 6 tax bands. So, why we have the money for a social care system, no matter how old you are. If you need the care, you get it. It's not just for the elderly. You know, I talk about how we get free university tuition fees and how we don't pay prescription fees and how we've got lower council tax and how we mitigate the bedroom tax and how we mitigate the 2-child cap. I talk about all these things so that people in England and Wales understand how it is we pay for better public services. Because we only get a per capita share of spending on reserved matters. You know. So the extra money, extra £1 billion a year we pull in with a more progressive tax system with 6 tax bands, allows us, because we're on a much smaller scale, to provide many, many more services, like free dental for the under 25s, free eye tests, that sort of thing. Right, let's move on. Boss of Scottish Power says he'll double spend on renewables if GB Energy increases its investment by double by 2030. Keith Anderson said he will double Scottish Power spend, which would take it from 12 billion, which is the planned spend to 2030, to 24 billion here in Scotland, if the UK government double its promised 8.4 billion or whatever it is in investment to 16 or 17 billion. Now, he says the extra money will go on offshore wind projects and on the grid. Now, if you live outside Scotland, chances are whatever county you're in England, you'll have some other foreign company running the grid. Here in Scotland, we have 2 companies basically running the grid. We've got Scottish Power and Scottish Southern Electric. They own the grid. Who owns them? Different matter, but they own the grid. So he's talking about updating the grid and investing in offshore. But he says there needs to be bigger incentives for the UK government. He also wants a planning sorted out. Apparently, it takes licensing and bringing a project, offshore project to fruition, takes 15 years. He wants that licensing a situation sorted out so that they can complete projects within half the time, 7 years. But he says the additional spend depends on whether the UK government is going to be able to invest. And we'll get to that in a wee minute, because that's fucking comedy gold. Right. Aye, Scottish Tories. Guy called Brian Whittle is thrown, Conservatives in Scotland. Guy called Brian Whittle, MSP, is thrown his hat into the ring to become their leader. And Brian Whittle, ex-Olympic athlete, an ex-European athlete, an ex-Commonwealth athlete, apparently, never heard of him. He says his priorities will be education, enterprise, and empowerment of people, whatever the hell that means. So, it looks like there's going to be a competition for head of the Scottish Tories. Who cares? Right, let's move on. Let's move down south, the Westminster section of the programme, where we talk about things, a couple of big stories down that road. Okay, it would appear that Labour slightly changed its tack on policy towards Israel after the ICJ's rules that Israel's occupation of Palestinian lands is illegal and tells them to get out. In the UK, David Lammy went to Israel last week and promised Netanyahu that they would keep up their objection to international arrest warrants based on the UK's assumption that or assertion that Israel isn't within the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. But apparently they've decided to pull out of it and say this is a direct effect of the ICJ's ruling last week. Now, they were never going to win. Their argument was that Israel wasn't a signatory to the ICC, the International Criminal Court. But, as we know, Russia is not a signatory to the International Criminal Court, but they issued an international arrest warrant for Putin. Why? Because Ukraine is a signatory, or a member state of the International Criminal Court. So therefore, that conflict comes under the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. As Palestine is also a member of the International Criminal Court, it therefore stands to reason that the International Criminal Court has jurisdiction over this conflict as well. So that is probably why the UK have dropped this quietly. Now, this came on the back of a Starmer restarting funding to UNRWA, the UN agency in Palestine, Gaza. So apparently the Israeli lobby are going after Trump because, as we know, the Israeli lobby heavily financed the Labour Party in that last election. Apparently they're going nuts, but it looks like the International Court of Justice's ruling on the occupation of Palestinian lands being illegal has got people, it's got the UK government trembling, wondering whether they would be found complicit. And as it's a new government, might be the right time to change tact. But in the same breath as they have started funding UNRWA again and dropped their objection to international arrest warrants, the UK government is also to reopen trade talks with Israel. Now that's for a reason. Israel's economy is on its arse. And Israel's economy is on its arse thanks to people like you and me. And a group called BDS, Boycott, Disinvest, and Sanction Israel. That's the name of the group. Now, if you go onto the BDS website, thank you very much, Stephen. Struthers, sorry. You get these glasses sorted. My new glasses. Now, as I said, BDS, if you haven't done it already, folks, you go onto their website and there you will find an app that you can download onto your phone. And that way, when you go onto a store or a supermarket, you scan that barcode or if they've got a QR code, you scan their QR code, and it will tell you if that product has any products in it from Israel. Now, the reason why Israel's economy is on its arse is because companies have stopped using Israeli goods in their products because their products were being boycotted by the public because the Israeli or occupied territories ingredients in them. So the mainstream media is not telling you this, folks, but it's actually Israel is on its arse and it's looking for partners like the UK and America to invest as private companies worldwide begin to divest themselves silently of investment in Israel and divest themselves of products that they buy in Israel for their own products. So the BDS campaign has been really successful, and if you aren't already part of the BDS campaign and you would like to take part in the boycott of Israeli goods, then go to the BDS website. Okay, but as I say, it's also rumoured that sometime this week or beginning of next week, Labour will publish the review on arms sales or the legal advice on arms sales to Israel. And there might well be a review. As I say, I think the UK Parliament and this particular Labour government's taking fright at the ruling of the International Court of Justice because the justices in the International Court of Justice made it clear to member states to do the right thing. And that meant state action. But just to let you understand, America and the UK have went out their way to try and stop a boycott of Israel. America and the UK both changed the law to try and stop companies and public bodies from boycotting Israel. Here we recently had the public bodies procurement bill, and that made it illegal for public bodies to boycott Israel. And it meant that the state would tell public bodies which regimes it could and could not boycott. So the UK and the US have went out their way to try and stop this and to stop BDS. But you can't tell private companies who to buy for. And if I've been buying a brand for years and I scan it with that BDS thing and it goes ingredients for Israel and I put it back on the shelf, then the people who are making that can I've been buying for years are going to change what's in it because they don't want to lose my custom. And they've realised that people are doing this. So we might see Westminster take fright here and this new government take fright and as I say, it looks like a UK government policy towards Israel, because foreign policy is reserved, may be changing a little. Okay. Right, Rachel Reeves tries to treat us all like fucking idiots in a speech today, which she will give today. Rachel Reeves will today tell the public that public finances are in a mess and they're the worst since World War II. The public finances are in the worst state since World War II. The way she's trying to tell us is, it's a bit of a surprise to her that there's a £20 billion black hole in the public finances. That's a lie. She knew fine well it was there. She was in that Commons chamber when the 2% drops to national insurance happened. And she knew fine well there was an £18 billion black hole in the finances. The fact that she's only managed to find another £2 billion black hole in the finances because of dodgy fucking projects, that to me is a miracle. I expected it to be much, much worse. But trying to pull the wool over the public's eyes, The SNP in the run up to the election was talking about baked in 18 billion black hole in the public finances. I was talking to you about an 18 billion pound black hole in the public finances. Everyone noticed it. Don't worry about burning your arse in a candle. Democracy did. So I don't need to light a candle for democracy. So, I mean, really? She's going to start up with DNC. She was surprised to find the 20 billion pound hole in the public finances. You're right, Molly. Stephen Flynn did point it out on absolutely almost every interview. I've mentioned it in almost every one of these programmes when they were talking about this stuff. Talking about doing this, talking about that. First, they need to explain how they're going to plug this 18 billion pound hole in the public finances. Are they going to increase national insurance again? Anyway, apparently, what she's going to do to try and plug this is stop infrastructure programmes. Just stop them. Stop them flat. And that ties in with Shona Robertson saying that she doesn't know what her capital spend, what her infrastructure spend is going to be. Because Rachel Reeves is now talking about chucking projects, just scrapping them in order to plug this black hole rather than tax people. They tell us we're being taxed at an all-time rate. Well, we've got 6 bands here in Scotland. I'm only paying £4 a week more than the guy on the same wage as me in England. I can afford a wee bit more in tax. I can afford a wee bit more in national insurance to ensure that my public services are good. But as I say, there's many ways to plug the black hole, but they've already said they ain't going to tax the rich. And that's the only way to do it. If England want to pull in an immediate 11 billion quid extra to fill that black hole, then England and Wales should follow Scotland and spread the burden more evenly across the tax brackets. Create more tax brackets, England. You'll bring in 11.5 billion quid like that. Just like that. And those on the lowest wage would be paying less tax. So it would be a win all round, because it means those on the lowest wage would have more disposable income to spend into the economy. Because I don't know how many times I've got to say this. A market economy doesn't function if people don't have money to spend into the market. And the only way to do that is with fair wealth redistribution. And that's what we're trying with our more progressive tax system here in Scotland. Okay. But I mean, imagine trying to tell us they're surprised at a £20 billion black hole in the public finances. Fuck's sake, we knew 18 billion it was there. Unbelievable. Right. At the weekend there, the right were on the march in England. Tommy Robson apparently led 8,000 headbangers in the right wing across London. Now, I'll watch some footage of it. Groups of them standing singing fuck Islam and things like that. It's pretty nasty. And they tell me Mr. Robson, whatever the fuck his name is, Stephen Yackley, Tommy Robson, he's been arrested again apparently. He's been held responsible for fringe elements within his march. Because he was the organiser of the march. We've seen that happen with Gary Kelly here, when he organised a march in Aberdeen and he reversed the route against the council and the police's will. So no doubt it'll be London bylaws he's been arrested under. Anyway, but it is concerning, folks. The right have got that bold, the far right have got that bold, they're marching again. And we've seen that increase right across these islands in the last 4 years. In fact, since Brexit, actually. But we did have it here in Scotland before that and all. We had a couple of far right extremist marches here in Alloa and one in Glasgow. The police were on the ball right enough. The one in Alloa, that was split up within minutes. Tommy's done a runner, is he, Stephen? But it is a concern, folks. These racists are starting to take to the street. They want their country back. And we've seen what happened during Brexit. Let's encourage them a wee bit. Maybe they'll get their country back and we'll get fucking peace. After all. We want our country back, so helping them take theirs back might work. Although the Scottish people are just a wee bit too sensible to get involved with people like you, actually. You know, and we certainly wouldn't encourage racism. Yeah, we would. We certainly wouldn't. As I say, it's dire situations. As I say, I wasn't that well prepared for the day, folks, to be honest with you, but and apparently in Rachel Reeves' speech, she has just announced that millions of pensioners will no longer get winter fuel payments. So that's another way she's going to plug the black hole. And apparently it's no 20 billion, it's a 22 billion overspend by the Conservatives. And the prospect overspend on the asylum system includes the Rwanda plan at 6.4 billion this year alone. Anyway, cuts. What Reeves is telling everybody is austerity is back. It has to be. If you are not going to increase taxes, then there will be severe cuts to the public sector. And remember, that means cuts to Scotland's block grant. So it does. Just a bit scanner. But as I say, what she's basically telling us is austerity's here. And when our budget comes, it will be an austerity budget. It will be an austerity budget. I mean, they're talking about increasing money for pensioners on one hand, and now they're talking about taking away their winter fuel grant on the other hand, so no increase for pensioners at all. The biggest problem that this Labour government will face will be in a couple of years' time when nothing has changed because this economy is shrinking. This term growth that they keep shouting about down there. The internal market won't grow without wealth redistribution, and there is nowhere for the external market to go. This is not a good situation we find ourselves in, folks. Whether you be in Scotland, Wales or England, situations are a wee bit different in Northern Ireland, but this is not a good place to be. On the bright side, the Scottish economy is doing better than all the regions in England and Wales, with the exception of the South East. We've got lower unemployment, we've got higher wages, we've got better public services, so we're doing better we're doing the best of a bad bunch here. But that doesn't mean it's going to get much better. But when we look at the financial pages, especially here in Scotland, seems to be a fair bit of optimism in the financial sector and in manufacturing and in the service sector, where a couple of companies have just announced big employment plans here in Scotland. A couple of logistic companies actually, maybe talk about that another time because I didn't put it in to talk about today. As more and more people shop online, they need more and more people to deliver the stuff that's getting shopped or that's being bought online. So the that particular sector is a boom sector right across the UK at the moment. But no, it's fine. It's fine. As I say, let's have a look and see what else is going on in the world. I'm not that great prepared today, folks. The stories that I've got there are dragged out over the weekend, but as I say, yesterday was a wee bit, I had a bit of dicky tummy, so I couldn't go far and wasn't concentrating for very long. Right, let's have a look and see if there's anything new in the Israel-Gaza front. Right, Golan Heights attack means border war probably on the way with Hezbollah. And Israeli ministers authorised strike. Now Netanyahu's trying to widen this conflict out, folks. He's trying to widen this conflict out to stay in power and to keep his allies on side. So, with attacks in Yemen, attacks in Lebanon, you know, Netanyahu's trying to extend this. So he is. Anyway, I don't know if you know this, folks, but the Golan Heights were the strike by the claim strike, Hezbollah denying it was them, but there was a strike on a settlement in the Golan Heights, which is also occupied territory. All right. Now, what's going on? And that seems to be the latest. As I say, we know that the Israeli economy is on its arse. You know. And of course, we've got everybody in their dug trying to tell us who Hezbollah is. As we did when it was the Houthis. So, apparently Ukraine started getting delivery of some F-16s. And that's about it. Military talks to deliver aid to rural Ukraine. Ex-UK Army Bedford RLs. I wonder if they're pausing the name. He must have taken out stories in Germany. And apparently China and Russia stage first joint bomber patrol near Alaska. There you go. It's getting dangerous out there, folks. It's getting dangerous out there. Oh, aye. And the Mad Monks created an after-show chat, folks, which I can actually get into it on a Monday or a Wednesday right after the show. But the chat room will be open, and I'll probably check the chat room at 10 o'clock every night to see if anybody's in there chatting. Please use that chat room to chat amongst yourselves. They're saying I'll check at 10 o'clock most nights to see if Nutty Yahoo didn't get the warm embrace from Harris that he was hoping for. No, he did not. That's another thing. In America right now, Joe Biden is trying to change the constitution to stop presidents being above the law. And when Netanyahu addressed the joint Congress, there was a good few notable absences, and Kamala Harris was one of them. She did have a meeting with him afterwards. I hear it was quite frosty. But that's the two big stories in America. Biden's trying to shackle Trump's attempt at dictatorship in America by ensuring that no president's above the law. He won't get it through in time, but at least he'll get the idea floated. And a number of US senators, congressmen, and Kamala Harris didn't show up for Netanyahu's appearance to address the joint Congress. Okay, right, this is an Indie Truck Davy. So, as was with Indie Truck Davy, only had 45-minute break. So, I'm only doing 45 minutes a day. I'll probably be an hour again on Thursday because I'll be able to prepare better. As I say, yesterday, the dicky tummy, which meant that I wasn't concentrating well, I wasn't being able to spend much time studying in front of my computer screen. Okay. Anyway, folks, I hope you find that interesting. I hope you found it informative. And thanks for viewing in such great numbers. Now let's see who this legend is. Milligan. Hello, David.
How are you today?
Stomach settled down, mate. Aye, I'm just winding up the show.
Alright, okay. Alright, we'll say hi to all the people out there. And I'm doing my very best to get back to them.
Aye, well, they've just heard you, David. You're live.
Okay, right.
Okay, mate.
Let me leave.
I'll give you a wee bell later, alright? Bye now.
Okay,
bye. Legend. He knows what day it is. He knows what time it is. Absolute legend. I'm going to start putting a board up for them and get their pictures up now. Mental. Right, as I say, that's it for the day, folks. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it informative. Please hit the like button. Please hit the share button. Please hit the subscribe button. Okay, thanks very much. And hopefully I'll have my other, the Facebook situation sorted out by Thursday. Have a nice day. Look after yourselves. Bye for now.